tonight. As you can see, we don't have our usual stenographer, so when everyone speaks tonight, please say your name before you actually speak, so we can get the record accurate. Looking for a motion to approve minutes from the last meeting. Lynn?
Lynn Kane, L-Y-N-N-K-A-N-E. Sorry.
Is that a motion to approve the minutes?
Yes, sir.
Thank you. A second?
Maria Walker. Maria Walker.
Walker.
And Brady.
And she can't hear that.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Correspondence are all up here if anyone would like to read them. There's a list of them on the agenda. Of course, applications for informational purposes. From there, we'll move on to the COA committee.
Jim Reagan. Public hearing for the matter of the town of Greenfield to convert their municipal conversion of their temporary to a permanent operating certificate was held tonight at Remo at 5 o'clock. CON committee endorses the recommendation and findings of the hearing officer, which is to grant them their permanent operating certificate. I'd like to make a motion that we vote on that.
Is that a second motion from the CON committee?
Yes.
We have a quorum, and we have to do a roll call vote because it is a CON matter. So, any questions or comments on the motion? Seeing none, Les Fremantle?
In favor.
Bill Price?
In favor.
Jim Regan?
In favor.
PJ Keeler?
In favor.
Ken Martin?
In favor.
Aiden O'Connor?
In favor.
Kathleen Allen?
In favor.
Amy Manchester?
In favor.
Was that in favor? Thank you. Myself, I'll vote in favor. Dale?
In favor.
Chris Gio?
In favor.
Dr. Daly?
In favor.
Dr. Jagoda?
In favor.
Steve Kroll?
In favor.
Maria Walker?
In favor.
Carol Brandt?
In favor.
Lynn Kane?
In favor.
E.J. Seaning?
In favor.
Dory?
In favor.
Thank you. Jeff Williams?
In favor.
Anne Marie Cross?
In favor.
Did I miss anyone? Everyone voted in favor. The motion carries. Thank you, Jim. Moving on. Reports of committees. Executive committee, I don't have anything to add at this point for the executive committee. The executive director's report?
Hopefully everybody has a copy. There's one item of note that I'd like to speak to on that report. We have hired 2 additional staff members here. We've hired Debbie Cuffs. I think probably everybody in this room recognizes that name, to work in conjunction with Dean in the QA/QI office. Deb should be completing a transition here over the month of December and roll out there in that office on the days Dean's not there, January 1. We also hired a fellow named J.C. Guzman, Juan Carlos Guzman. J.C. holds a BS in biology from SUNY Albany. He's an EMT, AHA BLS instructor, proctor for 5 Quad and Gilder and EMS, and he'll be doing the same thing with Courtney at the front desk, holding down that office when Courtney's not here. He'll also be transitioning throughout the month of December, so come January 1, we should have a full complement of people here at Remo. That's basically my report. If anybody has any questions, I'll be glad to answer them.
Any questions for Tim? Okay, seeing none, we'll move on to treasurer's report.
You can see from the treasurer's report, we're still in very good financial condition. We have only $3,460 in accounts payable and $1,480 due to instructors at this point. So I believe that comes in a second motion. Pay the bills.
Okay. Any questions for PJ? All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carried. Finance committee?
Three items. First, we have invited our investment advisors to come to a council meeting in either the first quarter of 2016 to discuss our investment portfolio with us. I've done many revisions. Traditionally, that the finance committee, that presentation happens at the executive committee meeting, which is open, of course, to anybody in the council to participate at. And when we know what month it is, we'll let everyone know. The second is bringing forward something under old business tonight. There was, at the last meeting, we voted on the Remo incentive compensation proposal for 2015. Subsequent to the meeting, a large state voucher came through paid.
Three of them.
Three large state vouchers came through paid that allows us, based on the formula, to recalculate the exact amounts of 2015 incentive compensation. And so it's the same formula, simply it takes into account these three vouchers that were paid to us. And so we would like to bring that forward as a motion for approving the 2015 incentive compensation at the formula being 12% of the excess of revenue over expense in our education programs. And so I don't know if you want to do that now, or so I'd make that as a motion. For the total amount be $12,941 according to the schedule of incentive compensation that Tim provided.
Everyone should have a copy, hopefully, of that with the attached vouchers that came in. All the vouchers were for classes that ended prior to the end of our fiscal year in September.
Any questions for Tim or Steve on the motion? Okay, seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Okay, and last item is that we began a discussion on the 2016 incentive compensation plan at the executive committee. That'll be reflected in the minutes, but essentially we're looking to not only have the incentive compensation tied to educational fund balance performance, but also to customer service. So we are going to be developing for presentation at the January meeting a formula that has two components. One component that's weighted towards how we do on our education, and one on some customer service metrics that would be measured by how the customers of Remo, being EMS agencies, feel about the work that Remo does. So we would survey the agencies in the beginning of the year and give them the same survey at the end of the year, and that portion of the compensation increase would be tied to whether or not there was improvement or not and how great that improvement was. We'll have a proposal for everyone to look at in January, and if anyone's interested in the draft, I know that we talked about the executive committee, just see me and I'll give you a copy of the current draft. And I think we should also email out the draft before the January meeting for people to look at once the new draft is completed.
Any questions for Steve? We'll move on then to Medical Director, MAC, and Academic.
Start with the medical director's report. The first thing that I need to thank Tim for is sending around the Lancet article on the response in Paris to the mass homicide that occurred there several weeks ago. If anybody would like a paper copy of it, I have a copy of it here. They did a remarkable job working in very austere conditions, and frankly, from the medical perspective, they saved the lives that could be saved in the situation that they were faced with. We can all hope that something like that never happens here, but we all have to think about the possibilities. I know certainly that our MCI committee will be working towards improved plans for that. I'd also, on a more positive note, it can be, the governor signed the EMS assault bill into law, if that can be more positive. But what it did is it changed language in an existing law which had stated that it was a felony for anyone to assault an EMT or paramedic and intentionally cause serious or significant injury, which obviously left the prosecutors with quite a significant burden of proof. The law now states that it's a felony for anyone who assaults an EMT, paramedic, or officer and causes physical injury. That is a huge difference when it comes to protecting us. So thank you to the EMS Officers Association in the City of New York are thanking the sponsor, Senator Golden, and the Governor Cuomo for signing that into law. It will make a huge difference. From a MAC perspective, one more thing is a medical director's perspective. We dispatched 2 physicians down to a hydrofluoric acid exposure, among other exposures, down in Green Island about 3 weeks ago. It was a very impressive use of incident command, and bore witness to the amount of resources that we can bring in this region to care for our personnel. Ended up decontaminating somewhere in the neighborhood of 30 firefighters, and luckily, with exposure to what is frankly one of the nastiest chemicals that you can be exposed to, nobody ended up seriously injured. We got lucky and dodged a bullet on that one, but it was nice for us to be able to watch how Colony EMS could support the hazmat team, how the hazmat team could conduct decon, and how the hospitals could pull together to make sure to handle 30 potentially exposed firefighters. That worked out very well. On to quick MAC business. We will be voting on a set of bylaws for the MAC on Wednesday. Those bylaws have been something that we have been remiss in having, and our enthusiasm for inclusion and bringing everybody to the table to have a voice. We probably missed the fact that we needed to actually very clearly establish a system of governance for the organization. As a result, we've taken the models from the Hudson Valley and Hudson Valley, Monroe, Livingston, and a couple of other regions. Dr. McHugh, Dr. Miles did some really good work on them, and we'll be bringing those forward to a vote on Wednesday. Oh, sorry, and Dr. Ushka also worked on those. The collaborative protocols will also have a similar governance document that we'll be talking about as well, if anybody would like to come to be a part of that discussion. A couple of other brief items. First is Mission Lifeline kicks off tomorrow. The most important thing about the Mission Lifeline program, which, as you'll remember, is a large grant that Duke University is moderating and our local heart association is participating in, is to get all of the hospitals to exchange data so that that data is all going to flow into a central repository, and we can then use best practices across the board in order to decrease door-to-balloon time and recognition or reperfusion time for STEMI.
I'm sorry, in order to increase?
Sorry, door-to-balloon time
Oh.
and recognition to reperfusion time for ST elevation myocardial infarction. Sorry. I'm doing okay. That's the first time she's had to do that, right? So that's good. That's good. So a couple of things to recognize right off the bat. The first is PJ Keeler and Dr. Nandi, who worked really hard taking best practices from St. Mary's in Amsterdam and making them basically within a week, I think, of that initial phone call. You were doing the exact same thing out of Columbia Memorial. Goal being to do door in, door out time for non-STEMI centers, places that can't do PCI or percutaneous intervention for heart attack. Sorry. Those patients will be out of those hospitals as quickly as possible. And putting those calls into the 911 system, PJ, the way they do out there was a great job. Really good job.
Didn't realize they did it out there.
And frankly, that's the idea, sharing best practices.
Yeah.
So what we can learn from other places is exactly what we should be doing with Mission Lifeline. The things from an EMS perspective that are going to be most important, there's going to be a training PowerPoint. I think it's going to be about 30 minutes that anybody can sign on and do through the Albany Med CME system. Half an hour of continuing medical education for looking at a brief overview of Mission Lifeline and an expectation of what EMS is going to be asked to do. It's going to basically be cast a wide net, do 12 leads on anybody who may have the potential to have an ST elevation MI, send the EKGs that look like they're STEMIs, or the cases where the patient is acting like a STEMI, to the hospital so we can look at them together with you, and then make sure those labeled EKGs remain with the patient afterwards. Frankly, EMS really does a pretty good job of this most of the time. The part for the hospitals that's going to be the most important from an EMS perspective is giving feedback to EMS. Some hospitals do much better than others. One hospital that shall remain nameless but is in Schenectady does this really well. There are two hospitals that shall remain nameless but are in Albany that don't do it quite as well. And we're hoping that actually the ones that don't do it well learn from the best practices of the ones that do. Hopefully that'll all come together. But Mission Lifeline begins tomorrow. And then syringe epi program is about to go live. The packages are being made, the training has been finalized, and the syringes are in the United States. So look in the middle of December for packages to begin to arrive. People who have signed up to participate in the syringe epi program. So
I'm sorry, people who have signed up,
for the syringe epi program, sorry. That's it.
Anything on funding
I can't
search
hear.
for the
Dale.
Hey, Dale, could you speak up and spell your name for the steno?
Shoot. Dale Lingenfelter, Lingenfelter.
Standard spelling.
Seniors.
I didn't hear what you
Oh, you
said.
didn't hear anything? I'm sorry. Just wondering what the status was on the funding or potential funding for the
For the,
modems.
Will be funded. Should we bring it up now, Ken?
Might as well.
So I actually asked the executive committee, and it's going to come here as a seconded motion, and hopefully this body will agree. What I would like to do is to guarantee the funding for those modems through Remo, so that while I'm out there banging on doors, I know that at the very least we can place an order and get these modems moving towards us and getting them programmed. That needs to happen and needs to happen now. That way we'll be able to get them on the ground here beginning of February before these things all stop working, which is exactly what we need to have done. That motion was made inside. I can't remember exactly how it was, but if somebody wants to bring that motion out now, it's probably the best time.
PJ, you made the motion. Remember what you stated?
Yeah, whatever I stated. I think basically what we talked about was the fact that Remo should make the commitment to purchase the modems, and we would actually pick up the funding difference between what we could raise and what the cost of the modems were. And in addition to that, I believe there's going to be a contractual relationship when the modems are giving out to require mandatory reporting.
There are two things that we're going to ask for the agencies. One is transmission of all cardiac arrest data into a central repository. You'll remember a few years ago we committed funding to getting a CodeStat suite software here, so we'd be able to do quality assurance on individual cardiac arrests. We're going to ask for people to send those cardiac arrests in now. The other thing is it's going to include the stipulation that the agencies understand that what we're doing is picking up some slack, and that it's the agency's responsibility as an ALS provider in the region to make sure that when this technology is done, you continue to have the ability to transmit electrocardiograms in whatever appropriate fashion receiving hospitals in 5 years are able to get. Who knows where the technology is going to be in 5 years? We do know in 5 years, the modems we're buying today will be useless. So the only thing we know is that they're going to outdate. So we want to make sure that the modems that get stuck holding the bill the next time.
Holding
At this
the-
point, I've got
Holding the bill.
holding
the bill.
Sorry. At this point, I've made contact with each of the hospitals in the region, each of the major payers, and every industry contact rep that I've had the opportunity to hit up for money. So those are all out there in the inboxes. Let's see what happens by the time my next knock on the door comes. If I need someone to come with me, I'll ask you. That might help.
All right, this is a seconded motion. Any questions, comments?
Do we have a top dollar amount? Is it, what are we talking about that we're funding? If we don't get it, what's the worst case scenario?
We've got 10 grand from the Heart Association. The maximum expectation would be $100,000. So we'd be looking at 90. My expectation is we will probably negotiate that down, so the total potential liability of this organization would be somewhere around 80. But I'm asking for us to encumber the whole thing. We've got the cash. This is clearly going towards patient care, and I'm looking to backfill the hole.
Do you want me to read the motion as it was presented?
That's fine.
Remo to pay the balance of purchase to upgrade the modems and allow the negotiation to purchase with Physio.
Purchase with the,
With Physio.
oh, Physio.
Any other questions, comments?
I'll just make a comment. Jeff, basically, what I said in the executive committee meetings was that we've done real well financially over the last 3 or 4 years. And, we kind of built this little stockpile. And that I didn't want the organization to forget the fact that our main mission was the enhancement of pre-hospital care. And I think this could kind of go a long way towards that mission. And I think it's important that we do that. We do have the money. The education, Tim has done a great job with that, and the instructors. You'll see from the incentive alone, education brought in over $100,000 in profit last year. And what we're saying is, this money, some of this money needs to go back to help people in the street. And I feel real strongly about that. Personal feeling.
And one of the stipulations that I brought up during the discussion was, this is the last time, we're not doing this bailout again. We can't keep affording to pay out $80,000 to $100,000 every few years to buy these modems. Agencies need to budget for this and plan for this ahead of time. I'm not gonna support this happening again. But I think it's a good use of funds at this point.
So I hear a discrepancy. Are we backfilling, Jeff Williams, are we backfilling what isn't paid, or are we paying for the whole shot? Because what the motion was, is we are just gonna make up the difference. What I'm hearing you say is we're gonna fund the whole thing and then take back. That's an entirely different.
Well, we've got 2 months now before those modems need to be here, getting out into the hands of the providers who are gonna be using them. So what we're gonna do is, I'm continuing to knock on doors looking for money, and we're gonna encumber the funds to make sure that we can pay down the whole cost while I continue to get money.
So Michael, how about we put it this way?
Yes.
You'd like Remo to pay for all the modems, and any money going back from any donations will be reimbursed to Remo. Is that essentially what you're saying? So i.e. if American Heart donates $10,000, it's going back to Remo. If you get anybody, so the bottom line is that's different than your memo, and I think that'll cover you completely, correct? Because the memo just says we're gonna backfill, we're not gonna pay for the whole thing, the motion from there.
Okay.
That's what it says, we're gonna backfill the 80 grand, period. But you want us to front the money.
Yeah.
So that's a different motion, and that's fine. I'm
Okay.
just saying, let's ask what we want,
I thought we
everybody's in
were.
favor. It didn't sound like it, that's just my opinion. Maybe everybody else sees it differently, but
I think it's 2 ways of saying the same thing.
I just wanna
I
make
think
sure
we're
you're
saying the
asking
same
for the
thing.
money and it's upfront.
So
When we,
if the bill is
ask for money
80,000 and
to
we
make
come
sure
up
we
with
can take
20,
care of our patients.
pay 60.
Okay.
More accurately, to make sure you guys can take care of your patients.
And you want it paid for now, and that's the difference in backfilling.
Right.
So,
Right.
EJ?
Yes.
I just have, does anybody have any idea how long these modems are estimated to last for?
I don't believe there's a number on it, is there?
Physically impossible to get a straight answer for that.
Okay. I also think that doing it this way, instead of asking for a lump sum up front, we can go and ask our benefactors if maybe they'd be willing to do something over so many
I
years.
can't hear you, I'm sorry. Ask our benefactor, you said?
Ask our benefactors, in lieu of for a lot of money up front, they may be able to commit more over the course of a few years for the same thing.
Let's see what we can do with the current benefit.
But I mean, it's gonna be paid for, so, I mean, just doesn't put us in.
I'm
debt.
having a hard time hearing you.
Sorry. Not many people say that.
Matter of fact, you're the very first.
I'm just saying, with it paid for, it gives us more time to go and collect money.
Any other questions or comments? Seeing none, vote for the motion. Anyone in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. State EMS Council meets next week.
Yep, a couple quick announcements. First, from the State EMS Council, Dr. Doynow from our region has been appointed as the chairperson of the CMAC, and that will be formalized at the meeting next week. In addition, I may or may not be elected as chair of Remsco. I think I'm the only nominee at this moment, but that could change. So that's a lot of attention to our region in helping with state policy. In addition to the law that was Mike told you about, the governor also signed into law the seatbelt law that requires in volunteer ambulances and volunteer fire vehicles that all occupants wear seatbelts in the front and in the rear when not actively providing patient treatment. For whatever reason, New York State Vehicle and Traffic Law specifically gave a pass to volunteer fire departments and volunteer ambulance services from the seatbelt law. That has been now changed, and so that is something for those of you that are volunteers to keep your volunteers apprised of. This includes in the back, when you're not actively providing patient treatment, that all EMTs and all passengers in the back should be belted. And the spinal immobilization protocol is now in full use. And if anybody's been to Albany Med or any of the other hospitals, not seeing a pile of backboards at the door happen very, very quickly. The state approximately 30,000 EMTs and advanced EMTs in the state completed the online training out of 60,000. It was, to say the least, a clunky process, and there's lots of people that have comments about how it could have been done better. But this is also the first time in New York State we didn't have a training where there needed to be instructors all over the state taught how to instruct, classes held all over the state in order to get a simple protocol change adopted. And so while it was clunky, half the providers in the state took the training and did it by watching a video. There are many, many things that have to be improved for the next time a protocol update is done. But this is the first time New York State was successful in doing a mass protocol training statewide without having to do a whole bunch of other hands-on teaching all over the state. And so as clunky as it was, I think it's the sign of a good path forward for the next time there is a protocol change. And at the last couple meetings, the Remsco and CMAC are talking about, rather than releasing protocol changes on a whenever it happens basis, they're going to try and do once a year a protocol update, where if a couple things happen during the year, they'll try and release them all together in a similar type of an educational forum.
Thank you. Nurses Committee.
No report. They're scheduled to meet on Thanksgiving Day, so.
Thank you. MCI Committee.
I'd just like to thank Jim Reagan. This is his last meeting, for all his help and his leadership and guidance in co-chairing the MCI committee over the last several years. We came a long way from where we were in the beginning, and I just want to publicly thank him. And I think he deserves a little round of applause.
Take us with you.
Anything else, BJ?
No, that's it.
Thank you. Membership Committee.
No report.
We need to have a nominating committee. Our usual chair is leaving us, so Lynn Kane has volunteered to chair that committee. Anyone interested in running for office, please let her know. Elections are in January. QI Committee, Dean's not here. Tim, do you have anything to add for him?
Should be a meeting Wednesday, December 2nd, prior to academic.
Awards is not
Yep.
needed at the
Mayor?
moment. Albany County.
No. Hello. May I say something about the awards committee?
Sure.
Okay, well, because I've already started putting some stuff together to review with Tim. I'm looking for people to participate on the awards committee. Steve Kroll and I, the last 2 years, have really been pushing for the quality improvement, right, the safety that Clifton Park Half Moon won this past year, okay? So we're looking to get more information out. So please, if you're interested, we usually do most of it by email, and then at the last minute, we come together and do our thing. So I'm looking for additional people to come play. Please let me know. Thank you.
Albany County?
The news from Albany County is, we've coerced my replacement here, Brian Wood from the Albany County Sheriff's Department is going to be taking the seat from now on. So he's looking for work to do.
Welcome, Brian.
You're now a member of the awards committee.
And the membership committee and.
Columbia County?
No report at this time.
Greene County?
Good evening, everyone. Just two small things. The Countywide Ambulance Task Force has met with all 12 towns and the county legislators. They will be reconvening early December to figure out what the next step is. And Catskill Ambulance is going ALS
I'm
starting
sorry,
January 1st.
Catskill.
Oh, Catskill.
Yep, Catskill Ambulance is going ALS January 1st. So we've met, ensure that there's a smooth transition during that time frame. And that is all.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Rensselaer County? Saratoga County, no report. Schenectady County?
No report.
Thank you, sir. New business, motion from the executive board to forego the December meeting, which is our tradition.
You couldn't have planned that better.
Thank you, John.
Was that a motion there?
Any questions or comments on the motion to forego the December meeting? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Old business, the bylaw revision.
We have a bylaw amendment that was read at the last meeting. It's to be voted on tonight and then re-voted on at the, we have to vote on it twice, correct? We vote on it again at the next
No,
meeting?
you only vote on, it
Oh,
has
we
to be
only-
read twice.
Has to be read twice. Okay, so this is the second reading. To be
January.
voted on. Proposed Article 4, Executive Board. There shall be an executive board with no more than 13 members to act on behalf of the council. The executive board shall consist of the 5 officers, 1 member appointed by each of the 6 counties, the chair of the nurses committee, and the regional medical director. The 2 changes are that we're expanding the executive board from 12 to 13, and that the 13th seat shall be the chair of the nurses committee. And so that was read last month and is here for vote tonight.
Any questions on the bylaw proposal? PJ?
I just have a comment. In reading over the proposal, I noticed that the commercial ambulance was left off. I've been on the executive board for 15 years, and there's always been a rep on the commercial ambulance on that board.
Couldn't find it in the bylaw. We've been looking since I raised the question at the last meeting.
Yeah, but I mean, it's always been, I know it's been a discussion a long time ago. It apparently was never put into the bylaws, but there was always a seat for a commercial rep.
But unfortunately, the way please someone correct me if I'm wrong, but my read of the bylaws, there isn't one on the executive board, not specifically for that. I mean, we can make the change, we can propose an amendment and make that change, but the way it sets right now, I don't remember that being part of the bylaws. Does anyone have a
And you'd
different
remember, because
recollection?
you've been doing this for 10, 12 years.
Well, I'll recommend the amendment.
Yeah, write one up, and we have to read it into the record twice at Remsco meetings, and then it can be voted on. Any other comments or questions on the bylaw, proposed bylaw amendment?
No? Stand by. Carol, been there a long time, so
Oh,
get
no.
rich. Seriously.
I don't know, I will have to ask the expert when I get home, but
I'm not sure there's an actual even seat for a
There, on
commercial
the
rep,
executive board,
so-
there was,
Or
none-
on
I don't
any, I don't even
remember.
think on the council,
Council,
I don't
period.
think there's an actual seat.
I remember one for the Remsco, but I don't remember one for the executive board. There was one of the at-large members was supposed to be allocated to the commercial ambulance services.
But it's
I
not
don't know how
listed
it's
that
worded.
way
Not
on the
in the
membership.
bylaw.
Right, right, but I don't remember, for
It's
executive
just
board
tradition.
specifically, I don't remember anything in the bylaws about that.
I'll stand corrected.
I don't-
So you'll make it better next time?
That's his choice. Okay, for the current bylaw proposal, any other comments or questions? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, bylaw amendment is approved. Any other?
Carol Brand. When this is done, finalized, can we all get updated copies of the bylaws? Because the copy I
Excellent
have
idea.
doesn't even have Steve Cole on it for the second vice chair position, that position.
I remember that, but.
I don't know what I don't know if everybody has the latest copy, we probably should.
I think it's an excellent idea. Okay. Any other items from the floor? Anything else anybody like to bring up?
Make a motion that we adjourn.
Just making sure nobody wanted to bring anything up.
Anyone else have something?
Okay. Motion to adjourn.
Who's the second?
I don't think the commercial if it was an informal practice, someone would put it.
Absolutely.
And I'll be happy to do it. I felt bad about it.
Well, no, look, it's legit, but I mean, you know, clearly Carol and Les Carey.
So I wanted to, I am out of work for February, March, April, and part of May.
Okay.
So I could offer, because I'm going to be stuck in my house for 8
Convalescing?
weeks. Yes.
Right.
If you wanted me to help collect the survey.
Oh, cool, okay,
Well, just because I'll have some extra time.
okay, thank you.
You know? I understand.